We're going to be in Luke chapter 6, and we're going to be looking at just 3 verses, 43 through 45 today. As we look at this ninth in our series of these Roots Run Deep, we are now into the New Testament. And today, I think there's probably not a person here who hasn't grown up believing something that we have been told is true, passing it along as truth, and maybe even arguing it is true, only to find out at some point that what we were told, what we thought was fact, what we believed to be true was in truth not true. Did you get that? To find out at some point that what we were told, what we thought was fact, what we believed to be true was in truth not true. For instance, if the apocalypse ever comes, your go-to food will be the Twinkie. The Twinkie. Now, while these snacks get a reputation as immortal, you've probably been told that, right? That Twinkies never die. In fact, like any food that includes moisture, they start to break down fairly quickly, even when they're in their packaging. And as Business Insider explains, Twinkies are less than optimal to eat after about 25 days on a shelf. So if you find a Twinkie that's a couple years old, my advice is don't eat it. Whether you're a fan of English metal bands or not, you're probably familiar with the torture device of the Iron Maiden. That horrible closet-like apparatus with spikes protruding from all sides, just waiting to impale its sad victim from all sides. The idea of the Iron Maiden-like devices has been around for thousands of years, even if evidence for their actual use is kind of shaky. Just do a little research and you'll find that the Iron Maiden is more a myth than an actual reality. This one's for Michael, and Michael's not here today, but I want to share with you that he has this notorious thing at home that he does this. Cracks his knuckles constantly. So cracking your knuckles is extremely annoying. It's distracting to those around you, but this displacement of the synovial fluid from in between your joints does not lead to arthritis, as your mom and dad probably told you, right? Stop cracking your knuckles, you're going to have arthritis. It doesn't lead to arthritis, as it's often claimed. The Harvard Medical School's blog points out something knuckle crackers should keep in mind. Chronic knuckle crackers, if we have any of you here, we're more likely to have swollen hands and reduced grip strength, and there are at least 2 published reports of injuries suffered while people were trying to crack their knuckles. I guess breaking a finger, I don't know, trying to crack your knuckle, but anyway. So it's not gonna give you arthritis. Pop your knuckles all you want, just don't do it here. Okay? Sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. Right? The 5 senses. You would think we're forgetting any of those 5 senses. You're forgetting about 15 others. According to some neuroscientists who include among our sense such capabilities as nociception, that's the ability to feel pain, chronoception, the ability to feel the passing of time, which most of us did this morning in the time change, and equilibrioception, I don't know what this is. I'm not even going to say that one. The sense of balance. That you actually have a sense, right? Don't we say that? You have you've lost your sense of balance. So you have more than 5 senses, by the way. And this is my favorite. I had to share it with you today. For the germaphobe in all of us, toilet seats are germ magnets. It's one of the most common misconceptions that the seats of a toilet are full of germs. I mean, let's face it, the bathroom is hardly the most sanitary place. But a study conducted by the University of Arizona found them to be relatively clean because they are often disinfected or washed. Makes sense, right? I mean, we do it because we know it's a place that's, kind of unsanitary. And in fact, this morning I have to tell you this. They were found to have 10 times fewer germs than your cell phones. All right? So in our 9th message on These Roots Run Deep, Jesus is going to tell us this truth. And it's the truth about what our lives produce. Let's see what he says. Luke chapter 6, verses 43 through 45. For there is no good tree which produces bad fruit, nor, on the other hand, a bad tree which produces good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. For men do not gather figs from thorns, nor do they pick grapes from a briar bush. The good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth what is good, and the evil man out of the evil treasure brings forth what is evil. For his mouth speaks from that which fills his heart. I was thinking about this sermon this week, and I came to the conclusion that at this time of the year, it is almost impossible to find good fruit. Isn't it? And we're just there. We're at that time where past generations, they used canning as a way of preserving the flavor of fruits that were harvested in the spring and fall months, and we've kind of lost that now. We don't really do a lot of home canning, and most of what we are buying now, if you will look at it, it's been picked half ripe. It's been refrigerated, it's been stored, and it's been trucked halfway across the continent to a store near us. Just the way it is, isn't it? Bought some strawberries this week and tried to find the best ones that I could find. I mean, we're getting close to strawberry season. I mean, it's coming, right? We're almost there, but I noticed that on the packaging, it says right there, produced in Mexico. I mean, those strawberries came a long way to get to my table, and they were okay. Orchard Magazine ran an article about peach growers, Fitz Kelly and Art Lang, who grow fruit that most people only dream about. Bite into, now I want you to just get this picture, this word picture. Bite into one of Fitz Kelly's Lady in Red peaches, and the flavor is enough to make you gasp. I love a good peach. The first impression is a powerful, syrupy sweetness. Isn't that what you want to taste in a peach? Then comes a tart tang that gives the sugar some backbone. That's the perfect peach. Sweet, tart, syrupy. Overriding everything is a mix of complex flavors, both floral and fruity, so mouth-filling they seem almost meaty. Isn't that a great, I don't know who wrote that, but man, that's a great picture of a peach. The fruit is so ripe, the juices drip down your chin. So ripe, a peach practically peels itself. And it goes on to say this, to get fruit like that is not accident of nature. It takes a gifted farmer, a lot of hard work, and a refusal to compromise. And then the article says Art Kelly and Fitz Lang are so good at producing their fruit that they don't have customers, they have apostles. Long before Fitz Kelly and Art Lang, Jesus used the imagery of the tree and its fruits to describe what kind of life every person on the planet will live. And I want you to get that today. Jesus uses this imagery for us in these short verses of the tree and its fruit to describe what kind of life every person on the planet will live. In the simplest word picture he could paint, Jesus tells us what we produce, what people see, what people hear comes from our heart. The question is, what are we producing? What are we producing? By our fruit, Jesus says, people will know us. By our fruit, not the leaves of our professions, pretensions, or appearances, but by the actual outcome of our lives. By our fruit alone will they know us. not by suspicion or hasty judgment, but by actual fruit and the time it takes for that fruit to reach maturity. And like Kelly and Lang, I'm going to tell you this morning, as Jesus is telling us this, it takes a lot of hard work and a refusal to compromise. By our fruit, the character of our personal life, people will know us. This morning, I want to ask you some hard questions, and I want you to answer them for yourself. Does our morality promote lasciviousness, self-indulgence, or the condoning of sin? Is our mind wedded to this earth, this life? What is the influence of our habits, company, conversation, and attitudes? Because you see, we might be teaching what is right while the fruit of our life is entirely rotten. Our character is more telling than our doctrine. And so if our religion makes us partial, spiteful, hateful, and immoral, what kind of fruit are we producing? You see, Jesus is saying our conduct as a whole, our actions, our words, our motives, our thoughts are the inevitable expression of our nature. And like the fruit which a tree bears, because the truth is it can bear no other. I mean, without a good tree, there can be no really good fruit. Good character is essential to good conduct. Now let me say that again. Good character is essential to good conduct. And so Jesus asks two humorous rhetorical questions to get our attention. And you read those with me this morning. I mean, this is what he says. Just imagine people going out to a briar patch to pick grapes, or taking their basket to a clump of thistles expecting to find figs. By this illustration, Jesus is saying what every observer of nature knows: every plant produces according to its kind. The question then becomes, what are we producing as believers? What are we producing as Christians? And so Luke points out that although conduct is a sure test, it is often a much slower one. You know that to be true, right? I mean, take a moment and just look at some of those Facebook posts of people. Just take a moment and read their profile. And you'll get a good sense that that may or may not be true of that person. I mean, you can accept it as truth. You don't really know them, and so what they're saying on their profile may actually be true, but then again, it may not be true at all. So we know that the real test of us is the conduct and the places and positions that we put ourselves in and the contact that we have with one another. I mean, that's kind of the proof of our life, isn't it? And sometimes that takes time. But when we open our mouth, whether we intend it to or not, we give ourselves away. I mean, whatever's hidden in the heart, good or evil, will come out in our speech. So this morning I'm going to ask you a question. Have we ever listened to what comes out of our mouth? Have we ever listened to what comes out of our mouth? The words that we pray. The words when we talk. When we talk to others, do we try to turn the conversation back to ourselves, or are we really listening to that person? I mean, we're so quick to jump into, something about my life, when maybe God is just asking us to listen to theirs. Do we complain and bemoan our problems and struggles? Oh, my knee hurts today. My back's a little off. My wife burnt breakfast. My hair just didn't do what it needed to do. Mine always does. Do we bemoan our problems and struggles? Do we talk about what we don't have? Do we only talk about worldly things, our job, our recreation? Do we talk down to others and make biting remarks? Because you see, oftentimes, we mask our hilarity in sarcasm. Do we use foul language, lewd comments, and off-color jokes? Because you see, we want to, as people, I'm there with you because I'm a person too, and we want to blur the lines of this hard truth from Jesus. We just do. We want to blur the lines. I mean, we need to ask ourselves this question: how many of us want to live our lives, how many of us want to live our lives like this student answered his test? I'm telling you, I appreciate this kid. Can you see it? Just take a moment and look at it. Is it true or is it false? Well, I don't know, how do you do that? False true or true false? Or do you see it? Is it true or is it false? And isn't that the way we want to live our lives? I mean, we want to live somewhere between the true and the false. We want to live somewhere between the good and the bad. We indulge the desires of the flesh, but want to sample the fruit of the Spirit. Now let me say that again. We want to indulge the desires of the flesh, but want to sample the fruit of the Spirit. We crave the leaven of the world, but we want the bread of life. We walk the broad way of destruction, but want to enter through the narrow gate. You see, we're very much like the student. We want to live somewhere between true and the false. So today I want you to think about what fruit you are bearing. And I want you to understand the words of Jesus here this morning. Look at them again. There is no good tree which produces bad fruit, nor on the other hand a bad tree which produces good fruit, for each tree is known by its own fruit. And I want to leave you with two images. Here's the first. I mean, who doesn't enjoy a ripe apple picked fresh from the tree? There is nothing like that, is there? I mean, the stuff that we buy in the stores, when our orchards are ready to be picked, man, there is no comparison, is there? You can tell the difference between an orchard apple and the ones that we get from the store. It's just the truth. I mean, I love a fresh, ripe apple picked from the tree. And of these three apples, I want you to ask yourself, which one would you choose? Now, there are 5 in the picture, but which of those would you choose? If you could choose an apple off of that tree, which one would you pick? Now, I looked at this, and I want you to notice this lower left apple. Did you see this one? A little bit of a spot, kind of looks like, I don't know, sometimes isn't that how the worm kind of gets into the apple, and that's kind of a spot. So there's a mark there, there's a spot, it's a bruising or a hole where an insect or worm has had its snack. And these fruits, they look good. I mean, after all, they're apples from an apple tree. And if I never judged them by their fruits, I would just yank the red one off the tree and I would take a big juicy bite out of it, wouldn't you? And if I did that, this is what I would bite into. Same apple, same tree, same picture, just a little different angle. I mean, the apple that looks good is the bad apple. The apple that looks good is the bad apple. And here's the important truth that we can't change. Listen to it this morning. There is nothing I can do to make that bad apple good. There's nothing that I can do to make that bad apple good. Now, I can cut off part of it, and there will be part of the apple that's good, but the apple itself was still bad, wasn't it? And if it's left to that particular moment in time, if it's left to that, just like that, that apple was going to do what? It's going to eventually rot, and it's going to die. It will continue to rot and decay. This morning, I want you to hear the truth. Spiritually, the same is true for us. We can't make this bad apple good. Do you understand that today? We cannot make this bad apple good. You can't make your bad apple good. But God can. God can. In and through Jesus, the unclean becomes clean. Amen? In and through Jesus, the forsaken becomes chosen. Amen? In and through Jesus, the bad is made good. And next week, we're going to find out how.